Welcome to Everything Dog Training with me, John McGuigan. Our goal is to bring you information on dog training methods which work and are kind, cutting through the myth and the folklore to help you have a better behaved, happier, emotionally healthier dog who is a joy to be around.
Cameron's a master carpenter and electrician. He got his first dog when a guy walked into a bar and was trying to give his dog Bobbie Sue away. He didn't even want a dog at the time, but he felt sorry for her and he made all the new dog owner mistakes. In the next year he adopted a puppy, Billie Joe. Soon after he rescued Henry. He had some great mentors and started studying hard. He's helped run a dog training page with over 100,000 members for years now, and that's Dog Training 101 on Facebook. When he moved to Tennessee a few years ago, he started volunteering with rescue, working with aggressive and hard-to-home dogs. There aren't many resources around Cameron's area, and the success rate has been small, but he kept trying. He currently has 4 dogs in the home. He just sent a foster to a different foster family after he was dumped outside of town. So they captured it and kept it in place till a new home could be found. Cameron would say his strong suit in training is patience, and he knows that not everything can be fixed in 1 or even 10 sessions. He says that you can only look at the dog in front of you and that dog will tell you what needs to be done. He has 5 kids, 4 dogs, a cat, 5 chickens, 2 hamsters. He loves gardening, nature, and would easily fit into the American term hillbilly, which I think he's been, having spoken to Cameron a few times, I think there's nothing derogatory in that term, the way that Cameron describes himself. So I had a really interesting conversation with Cameron and I hope you enjoy it, and please let us know your feedback. So thanks for joining us this morning. So this morning, Cameron, you are 10 o'clock where you are, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were saying that you've lived in 5 states in the US because you grew up in Illinois, but that's not an Illinois accent, is it?
No, more, a lot of my accent I picked up from Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, you get some very, very strong accents down there for sure, and the southern states in general. So,
okay. So what would be? So let's try. I'm going to say, if I was to ask you what a midden is, okay, what would you think? It's a Scots word. What would you think a midden is?
a meeting.
Right. So, right. So, and it's MIDDEN. So like Joe Biden, but with 2 D's and an M and not a B.
I have no idea.
Right, so a midden. And it's right.
Do you put a midden in your boot?
Right, so a midden is the common garbage area in a building.
Huh.
Okay. So we'd come from, I'm just going to switch off, hang on, because I'll get those notifications will pop up. Okay. So when we had a lot of tenement dwelling in the cities, and there would be the bins or the garbage area at the back, and that was the midden.
Yeah.
All right. But
a midpoint maybe, or a mid.
Yeah. And we'll have it, it's not used commonly anymore, but at school we would use it as an insult. So the person, he's a midden or she's a midden. Okay, right. So what's a common let's go a common phrase from Tennessee. So what would, and I'm going to try and mimic it.
I was trying to think of some this morning, actually. A common thing I hear here at breakfast time is, I'm going to go get a biscuit.
So
everybody says, I'm going to get a biscuit. And that means anything for breakfast, but
okay.
Breakfast is summed up as a biscuit.
So let's try it. I'm going to go and get a biscuit. How's that?
See, you could do good around here.
Very good. Okay, so we're going to talk today about kind of it's all of this kind of same theme. So like setting expectations for your dog. All right. So when you're working with somebody, how do you approach that with them? So approaching them, having patience and having realistic expectations.
Well, a lot of what I see, and this is something I've been contemplating lately, when you look at YouTube, you look at Google, you look at the famous dog trainers, you see this perfect world. And you know, they have a great studio set up, you know, great training grounds. But most of the rest of us are, you know, we're in our yard trying to train. We're going to the park trying to train. We don't have this perfect setup. We don't have, you know, decoy stuffed dogs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, just setting up for success. You know, a lot of times what I do, dirt road dog training, I take dogs way out in the country. There's no distractions. There's no other dogs. There's no people. There's no cars. And we start from there. Start from scratch. Start from the basics.
Okay. And what are you hoping to achieve by doing that?
Well, really just basic loose lead walk, basic relationship with the dog in a not so distracting environment. Okay. If you walk out of your front door and there's, you know, neighborhood dogs everywhere, all these distractions, and you're trying to get a loose lead walk, it's just not going to work. Yeah.
So when you're saying there, this comes up quite a lot when people say they set the dog and the owner up for success. So what kind of things do you suggest that we do with that in order to set the dog and the owner up for success?
Well, many times what I do is I'll meet owners I've got some really small towns around me that have little parks, and they'll have a ball field.
Okay.
So I'll meet them at that ball field. There's no distractions. We can go in the ball field. We can work with the dog off lead, because I prefer working off lead as much as possible. But you can work with the dog without you know, going to, say, a big park where there's lots of people, lots of distractions. I want the dog and the owner calm and comfortable, especially at first. And that, to me, that's the best way to get a good read on the dog, when you can see it when it's comfortable, when it's relaxed.
So we're really seeing what the dog's capable of there.
Yeah, from the basics.
Yeah.
Does the dog know its name?
Yeah,
that's one of my big ones. And one of my first suggestions to owners is, on my first phone call, I say, start name game.
So we say the dog's name, and then what happens?
I just suggest the dog doesn't have to do anything. Say the dog's name, toss a treat. Say the dog's name, toss a treat. Because dogs don't personalize their name like we do. And it creates a super positive association. I've done it a ton with my dogs. We have 4. And now if we have a scuffle or something, I can say the dog's name softly, and they immediately, oh, what's going on? We getting a treat? Yeah. You know, it's a great, great, great positive interrupter, for one.
And so we're testing there that the dog recognizes their name, because if we've not got that, would you think that we're unlikely to get very much more than that if they can't even respond to a signal that something is important to them?
Yeah, I think it's a great first step. And I think it's a great learning step too with the conditioning, because a lot of times we want our dogs to do something. They need to do something when we say something, but that's not always the case with conditioning. And what I notice too, a lot of times, you know, at my house it happens. Everybody's running around, oh, Henry, stop that. Smokey, quit barking. You know, Billy, get out of the way. A lot of what they hear in their life can become negative all the time, just because of, you know, it's regular life. They get under our feet. You know, and I think that creating that great positive association to the name is just a great first step, because many of my dogs will recall to their name now. I can just, especially Bobbie, she's the one I worked with the most. I could just say, hey, Bobbie, and here she comes.
Yeah.
You know, great, great, great positive association to her name.
And you build that just by pairing the dog's name with something that the dog likes.
Yep.
Okay.
Pair the two together. Something good.
Okay, cool. All right. And you're saying as well that when what are some examples of people having really high expectations for their dogs in training, and then how do you start breaking that down to make those more realistic? And I'm always cautious of using the word realistic because I think it excuses a lot of poor training, because we can get doing the right thing, we can get a lot quite quickly. But what are the kind of things that you explain to owners about how do we set those expectations for the dog?
For sure. And I have a great example. My mother got a Brittany puppy recently, and they have a pretty large farm, large acreage. So they thought that it would be just fine to take the puppy out off lead all the time. Well, eventually the puppy chased a squirrel across the highway.
Okay.
Ran a long ways, and it was a setup for failure for one, because when the puppy took off running, what's your natural instinct to do? You chase the puppy.
Yeah.
And then bam, 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 snowball, bad situation. So now what they're doing is they're walking the puppy all the time on a long line. And even if it's in a safe area, they have a really nice thin 20-foot, I think, long line. And they said it's worked wonders. They've been able to work on the recall better, stuff like that. Because it's just that expectation of, I can take my dog to the store immediately.
Yeah.
And then what I see that a lot, let's take our dog. We've got this new dog. Let's take this dog everywhere. And you get a lot of negative exposure to things where if you slow that down just a little bit, Cliff Earnhardt actually does this also, but go sit in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And just watch. When my dogs were young, I would all the time go to a big store and we would just sit in the vehicle, watch people, feed treats, no big deal, nothing expected of the dog. We're just sitting there calmly watching the world go by. Instead of trying to, here the big hardware stores are Lowe's and they're dog friendly. A lot of people will immediately take their dog there expecting everything to be okay. But what happens is you run into other dogs. There might even be a dog off lead in this store. You never know.
Yeah.
So, and it's just a big setup for failure sometimes for you and the dog. And, and then you're pulling on the lead, trying to drag your dog away from another dog or a person. People will approach and pet without asking.
Yeah. So those kind of situations, if the dog's not been trained, if we've not trained our dog or we've not taught our dog what to do, the behaviors that we want to do well enough, they're now going to behave in a way that we don't like. So pulling in the lead, jumping up, getting overexcited and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Definitely. A funny one about Lowe's, I have a dog that's pretty skittish. She has noise phobia. And I wasn't thinking about it, but the sliding door scared her.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
So and as soon as I saw that reaction, we retreated to the car. I didn't push forward beyond that point. She'd already been scared. It's already there. It's better off just to back up, try it again some other day. We went and got the car, went to the park.
I'll circle back to that in a little bit. There's just a couple of things I wanted to kind of ask you to expand on there. So when you're saying that you've got kids, don't you? You've got children?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So when that example of taking your young dog or your untrained dog to the car park or the parking lot for Lowe's, or where we would do it, we would just have them at so in the UK or in Scotland, very, very few of our shops are dog friendly. So, but we still need to train them to be around these places. So I use car parks quite a lot as well. But they say it's very similar to when your child starts sitting up, so when they're about 6 months old, 8 months old, and they'll be able to start sitting. And at that point, we maybe take them to a cafe or a coffee shop for, a drink and a piece of cake. And then we take them home, so we start that early age. So by the time they get to, 3 or 4, because we've been doing this, we can now go in and sit in a family restaurant for an hour or so, and they will sit having their dinner, and that kind of thing. So it's very similar to that, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Baby steps, baby steps. And, we were shopping yesterday with our 2-year-old daughter, And by the end, she was frustrated. You know, she was stuck sitting in the car. You know, I tried to put her on my shoulders. You know, it's just they don't sit still that long. So finally, I just took her to the car, and we played in the car while Amanda finished up shopping. You know, it's that expectation.
Yeah. So what, with your daughter there, what were the behaviours that you started seeing which were telling you that she was getting frustrated or she was not happy with where she was?
Very similar to the dog. A dog does, starts getting antsy, wants to get out of the car, you know, starts getting loud, wants to grab everything around her. Just, you know, a kid. And it's, you know, she's being a kid. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take her out of the bad situation and find a better one for her at that point, because there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
You can't, you know, you can't reason with her. You can't say, hey, let's stop doing this, because then it's going to be stop, no, stop.
Yeah. And it's interesting there, because most reasonable people, you would think that would be, they would agree with that choice that you've made to say that your little one's just not having a good time there, and we change the environment so that they then can relax and get back into themselves. Because if it's going to go wrong, but we don't have that same understanding or compassion towards our young dogs sometimes, or our puppies.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's, with children, it can be tough too, because sometimes you have to do what you have to do with them.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have a choice but to go shopping.
Yeah.
And if they scream the whole time, they scream the whole time. It's one of those double-edged swords. You want to do your best for them, but like everything, we're human, and we can't always, we're not always going to be perfect at what we do, for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, so what's your dream car?
My dream car, excuse me, my dream car is a 4-door utility bed flatbed truck. I'm all about work. So my dream car is a work truck.
Okay, that's very practical, Cameron. So I looked before you came on. So there's a city called Glasgow in Kentucky. It's not too far from you.
Yes, there is. If I ever go through, I'm sending pictures.
So Glasgow, Kentucky is 254 miles from where you live. So that's about 400 kilometres. And Glasgow, Scotland is 6,456 miles from where you are.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's interesting because you've got, so your first name's a Scottish name, and you've got lots of, and then you've got cities like Glasgow, which is, that's come from Scottish immigrants.
Yes, definitely.
You know, without a doubt it has. Okay.
My ancestors are actually Scottish Welsh.
Okay.
And the original Cole that came, he lived in England and got kicked out of England for illegal arms manufacturing. so I think the ornery streak runs in my blood.
Yeah, very good. Good. What does the first 30 minutes of your day look like?
Grab a cup of coffee, put 3 dogs out back, leash walk 1 dog, bring the other 3 dogs in, water, food for the dogs, go release the chickens out into the front yard. Yeah, just animal care and coffee.
Nice. Okay. Would you rather be the funniest person in the room or the smartest person in the room?
I'm both. Actually, to answer that question, a lot of times I am the funniest person in the room, and I've found that a great way to connect with people.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool. And this one will be easy, I would think. Scotch or bourbon? Cool.
That would be my answer to that.
All right. Okay. So you were saying, when I said to you, we're going to circle back around to that a little bit, when you were talking about, what's your little one's name, the 2-year-old?
Everly.
Right. So when Everly is having a bad, just having a bad day, you know, or whatever, or she wants, so because some stage you'll take her to the supermarket and she'll be fine the whole time, and other days that she's not because she's 2, you know. So you take her out if you're able to, and then Amanda finishes the shopping. So you've taken care of her needs in that moment as best as you can.
Definitely. I always go back to Maslow's pyramid, to the basic needs.
Yeah.
If we're taking her shopping, we make sure she has a snack, make sure she has a drink ready. She's not ready for a nap, just set up for success.
And we can take those same principles into your training sessions with your dogs, yeah?
Oh, definitely, all the time. Like right now, and what I started out with is the perfect life you see online and dog training. Right now, we're having a flea outbreak.
Okay.
I spent the whole evening giving baths last night. We went and got meds from the vet. But on the other hand of that, I've noticed some behavior issues with the dogs. And it just little things, like we have one dog having an accident at night now.
Okay.
And we've had a lot of storms in the evening, which has made the evening potty break a little harder.
Yeah.
So an accident in the house is no big deal. But, I just always look at what's going on with them. I had a little bit of an aggression issue pop up a while back with one of my dogs. The first thing I did, took her to the vet.
Yeah. And why was that?
Just to rule out any pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just, I don't know what's going on, so I want to start from scratch and, check everything off the list. Is she in pain?
Yeah.
Is something going on with her?
And that's I had a client phoned me yesterday, or an inquiry yesterday, and the dog's I think this 5 or 6 year old dog, and in the last 2 months they've had 6 extremely out of character aggression incidents. And my first thing was dog goes to the vet for a check and some pain meds to see if that makes any difference to start. And it's something a lot of people will forget about or not even think about,
My most recent client, they were having some aggression towards owners. It started after the dog had ran away for a day, but another thing was the dog had an ingrown nail, and they took quite a long time to be able to get it taken care of at the vet. Okay. But there's your pain problem.
Yeah. And if we address the pain problem, very often a lot or all of the aggression stuff will go away.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. All right. The other thing we talked about, we're saying trying to do, and it's going back to when along the same line, okay, but trying to do too much too soon with your dog and not having enough patience. So how do you explain to people that they have, how do you go about starting for people to understand that it's a process that they're going through with their dog and the dog's learning it as well?
Well, a good way I like to explain it is starting a new job. You start a new job, you have no idea what's going on with that company. So the first thing they usually do is sit you down in a room for 8 hours and you watch videos.
Yeah.
A lot of times you don't jump in and go directly to work at what you're doing. You go through the whole safety procedure. You go through, just everything. Many times they're not going to sit you straight down at a desk and say, here you go to work. Or, put you in a machine at a factory. Here you go to work. I've went to jobs, the railroad, for example, I had 3 days just sitting in a room watching videos before I ever went to work. So first things first, the first steps.
Yeah.
If your dog's dragging you around on the lead in your front yard, then you don't want to go to a big busy park.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can come up with strategies, which we'll talk about in other episodes of how to give your dog to meet those needs of exercise and stimulation and all that without taking the dog and the owner to places where they're kind of metaphorically drowning.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. All right. Okay, so how do you respond when, because you'll have had this, because we've known each other online for a long time now, but when people kind of push back against positive reinforcement dog training, what are some of the things that you will explain to them?
I see it every day here. The e-collar is common here.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of dogs on my street, they're wearing e-collars. A neighbor down the street has 2 dogs. Both of them are wearing e-collars. He's carrying 2 remotes. And I really I don't say much to him about the e-collar. I just show him, and I have a little house next door to the person I'm speaking of that I'm working on. And I'll just play with his dogs and, kind of how do you say it? The show, put up, show them how it works, not try to attack what they're doing wrong, because then you're going to get the cognitive dissonance. They're going to shut off immediately. I can't walk up to your house and say, well, that, paint job on your house is ugly. You should paint your house.
Yeah.
That type of approach, it's never going to work. But if I'm walking by their house every day with a different dog on a loose lead, or off lead. I have one dog that's great off lead. She'll stay right with me. Or go work with their dogs. I always have a bag of treats in my pocket. I wear cargo pants. So,
yeah.
And just show them what they can accomplish. An awesome one with a new dog, very first thing is capturing that sit. A lot of times you can capture that sit, given no cue, capture it a couple times, and then maybe start a short little ping pong session, a little bit of name game, and then start a short little ping pong session. And when that dog starts running back and forth from me to them and immediately sitting down for that treat, it's like magic to them. They're like, oh, wow.
And how do you, when you're saying capturing, what do you mean by that?
Not asking the dog for the sit, just waiting for the sit to come, waiting them out. Or I might lure it a little bit. If the dog's just not getting it or jumpy, I may lure it with a treat, hold a treat over the head and then slowly bring it back towards the tail.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that sit comes, treat.
Yeah.
And they catch on to it so fast, especially puppies. And my very first client, actually, this puppy was, I think, 13 weeks old and was sitting every time it ran up to you in about 10 minutes.
Nice.
Loved the game. And to the owners, it was like, wow, this is magic, and.
Yeah, really cool. Okay. So, last thing. Okay. So I'm going to finish the sentence. Dog training is.
Dog training is ever changing. I don't know how I'd finish that out in just a sentence. I would almost say dog training is ever changing. It's never the same with any dog. Every dog's different. Every person's different. Every environment's different.
And even then, with the dog so if you train your dog today, the same dog is going to be different tomorrow because another day has passed, more learning, and so on. Yeah, lovely.
And back to the basic needs, a week from now, my dog may have a belly ache and I want to take them out and do something, and it's just not the day for it. They're not feeling it, just like us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, wonderful. No, I really appreciate your time today. So, much obliged. There's lots of lovely information in there that people will be able to act on. So, massively appreciative.
No, very welcome. Great to talk to you. And I'd like to finish with one last thing, just for everybody. But, life isn't perfect. We have to do the best we can, with ourselves and with our dogs. And, just like with us, some things take baby steps and little baby steps and little baby steps. But if you keep doing the baby steps, you're going to see the results you want someday.
Awesome.
Maybe not when you want them, but someday.
Wonderful. That's a nice note to finish on. Thanks very much.
All right, John. Good to talk to you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Massive thanks for listening to this episode. Your feedback is important to us, so if you've got any comments or thoughts on the podcast, or you've got anything that you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please do get in touch. You can find us on all the social media channels, so that's Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. And if you search for Glasgow Dog Trainer and Behaviour Consultant in any of those platforms, you'll find me. Or you can email me info@glasgowdogtrainer.co.uk. Thanks very much for listening, and your support means the world to us.